As I'm sure many of you who were at regionals last year probably remember, David Jevtovsky's State of the Region address was probably upwards of 20 pages double-spaced and took over half an hour. To some, that might sound a little ridiculous. To me, that sounds like a challenge. Unfortunately, with Shabbat and candlelighting and all those other shenanigans, Sandra has asked me to keep mine relatively short. So unfortunately, no records will be broken today. Anyways, here we go. Everyone knows all great speeches must begin with an inspirational quote. So here's mine. A wise man, /woman, /Sandra, once said, if you are talking, you are doing the wrong thing. A year ago, as I stood in this exact place, and by this exact place, of course I mean, as I stood in front of a tiny room at some random hotel in the Albany area, delivering my very first speech as your regional president, talking to all of you for the first time as your regional president, I couldn't help but hear that little, strangely seductive voice of Sandra in my mind, saying to me, you are talking, you're doing the wrong thing. How, you ask? How could that possibly make sense? How could you, Daniel Rubin, the world's greatest canvasser, greatest Tzafon regional president to ever serve from 2012 to 2013, smiliest man to ever grace this land with his presence, this land flowing with milk and honey that is our state New York. How could you feel like speaking to Tzafon as its newly elected leader, you were doing the wrong thing? Well, let me give you a little background to help you understand what I was feeling. We all know the qualities that make for a good regional president. Experienced in USY, knows how to run a convention, poised under pressure, gets along well with his executive board, dangerously good looking. That was a personal addition. Anyways, let's take a little look-see at the man, no, the child we had standing in front of us a year ago. Experience. Before this past year, the year in which I ran for president, I had been to a grand total of, wait for it, 5 conventions, 2 ICs, 2 sprinters, and 1 fall convention. Because I had such a slow start to my USY career, there are currently sophomores sitting in this room who have been to almost as many conventions as I have. Not a great start. Qualification number 2, knowing how to run a convention. At the time of this kid's election, the last service he had led was in 7th grade, the morning of his bar mitzvah. I can tell you exactly how I led my first beer cop at last year's convention. Nothing. Qualification number 3, poised under pressure. I finally thought I had him. I still remember that first Havdalah service I helped lead. It was a dark and stormy night, the kind that sends you shrieking up to your bedroom before throwing on your footy pajamas and leaping into bed squeezing your patchy old teddy bear for dear life. It was the last night of convention, and Havdalah was coming to a close. My moment was coming, and I could feel it. So I held up that Havdalah candle in one hand, and my plastic wine cup in the other, and I started lowering the candle into the cup. Very slowly. I mean, I didn't want to start the year off on a bad foot, with a bad sizzle, you know? Anywho, long story short, I guess I went a little too slowly, and the candle ended up melting a little bit of the Kinnus Gadol. Oh well, what are you going to do? Qualification number 4, dangerous good looks. Well, alright, so I did have one of the categories down. At least I thought I did, until I looked over at David Jevtovsky again. I did not feel qualified to take on the task ahead of me. Not in this playlist. This is until one thing changed everything. This past summer, I embarked on USY on Wheels. For those of you who don't know, a 6.5-week summer program through USY that literally will change your life. But we can talk more about that later. Long story short, USY on Wheels gave me not only the knowledge necessary to lead services, but the confidence necessary to have left for that summer, a nervous, insecure child, and returned a true regional president, ready to take on the world. Yet, what is a regional president without his trusty, rusty sidekicks of his REV? And so it is to them who I turn next. Without these 6 people putting in constant time and effort